And then we started a series last weekend called This is Grace, short series, and we're really just taking a few weeks to look at some of the things that we value most here at Grace and kind of explain why we do what we do and what we're all about. If you missed last week, it was a phenomenal conversation. If you missed that one, Pastor Aaron opened us up here with a conversation around kids and students and why that's such a huge value for us. Make sure to catch that if you missed it online. And then today what we want to do is we want to have a conversation around something we call sharing life together, or sometimes we'll call it biblical community. And so this is the idea of really us saying, hey, we are going to recognize that we need the priority of gathering together as followers of Jesus, right? We describe this value this way. Again, we say we share life together. And we as we kind of plotted it out, this is one of our official values. We say we cannot live without honest relationships. We are resolved to figure out how to love God, love each other, and live on mission together, right? So we want to love God, we want to love each other, and we want to help other people to know Jesus, to live on mission together. And I love this value because it helps us to kind of realize what's actually happening. I'm somebody who didn't grow up in church, and maybe some of you are in that category too. So when I came and kind of saw what the church was, I didn't understand totally what to expect. Right? At first, I kind of thought maybe this thing is just like a religion to attend once in a while, and that you should just learn some information about the religion, and that's kind of what it was. Right? And what I found is those things, of course, are a part of it, but it's certainly not all of it. In fact, this is how I think of it today. When we think about what it means to be a follower of Jesus, there's a reality that we are the only people, the first generation to try to figure out how to follow Jesus in 2025, right? In this time, in Akron, Ohio, kind of the right here, right now. How do we do it with the set of struggles and challenges that our culture is in the middle of, while we all carry our own burdens in the mix of it? So we have to figure that out together. How do we follow Jesus in a world where there's AI and smartphones and political tensions and blah, you name it, while we deal with our own financial issues and health issues and marital issues or singleness issues or whatever we're dealing with? How do we do that, right? There's generations that have come before us and have walked through that together, but they're not here now. We're here now. So how do we do that, right? How do I make Jesus make sense and share Jesus with the people in my life? How do I know God, and how do I kind of walk in the middle of it all the time? And this is kind of how I think of it, and we'll look at a passage from Scripture, right? So you and I, what we're going to do in general is we kind of find ourselves living in our own little box, kind of our own little world, right? All of us kind of do that, and a lot of times, if you're attending here or if you're a part of the church, there's a high likelihood that maybe none of your life overlaps with somebody else that you may be sitting next to here on Sunday, and that's okay. That's not a bad thing. It's just kind of a reality, and that's true for many of us, that we're kind of living life on our own. We're going to school. We're going to work. Maybe you're retired. Maybe you're dating. Maybe you're single. You name it, and we're figuring out, how do I love and follow Jesus in the middle of my own kind of stuff, right, that I'm in the middle of right now. And we're trying to solve that. And often what happens is we'll do that a little bit in isolation if we're not careful. We'll do that alone. I'll try to solve this on my own and maybe feel a little bit alone in it. Well, the Bible talks a lot about this idea of sharing life together. And the idea is, right, that what we would do is say, okay, different people from different backgrounds in different life situations are learning different things as they try to follow Jesus in their little world, right? I'm doing that, you're doing that, we're all doing that. And then the idea is that as we do that independently, we would every once in a while, weekly or bi-weekly or whatever, we're on a regular basis, we're going to gather together in a smaller setting, and we're going to help each other to be strengthened to go back into the situation that I'm in the middle of, right? In the middle of my team or my work situation or my class or whatever I got going on in the middle of my life. And as we do that, we help each other to be supported, to be strengthened, to share the lessons and the victories and the difficulties of how we're experiencing whatever God's teaching us here in the middle of it, right? And we're doing that in real time, right? Because there's real stuff that we're all facing, and we're trying to find, how do I find support and help and kind of the lessons that are going to strengthen me all along the way, right? And we're going to see this show up, and we're going to look at a passage from Hebrews. In this book of the Bible, the author of Hebrews is going to talk to a group of followers of Jesus who are in a difficult situation. They probably would have felt lonely. They probably would have felt persecuted. And here's what it says here in Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 and 25. The writer says, let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. So the writer is going to say, here's the idea. Let's consider, how do we help each other? Let's consider how to encourage one another towards good deeds in our everyday lives. So as we gather together, that's what we're doing. And what we don't want to do is abandon that. And sometimes this happens where we'll abandon gathering together, abandon the value of community, and what can happen is we get isolated and disconnected, and we end up kind of alone. And he says, make sure, he says, as the day approaches, and that's the idea of the closer that we get to Jesus coming back, right? Jesus is coming back. He's going to come back and make all things new. He says, as that day approaches of Jesus' return, the closer we get to it, the more we're going to need this value of gathering together to share life with one another. He says it's going to become even more important because following Jesus might become even more difficult in our everyday lives. It's the big idea, right? So he says, make sure to lock into that and make sure not to let go of it. Think about how to be a catalyst in the lives of other people that you're committing to hang out with. How do I help you towards love and good deeds? And how do we make sure this is a kind of a priority in our lives? And I would say, right, you could probably experience this and feel this, that in our world, in our culture today, there is a major difficult situation where there's a bit of an epidemic of loneliness, right? Where because this thing exists, right? This is a great tool, right? This helps us in a bunch of ways. It's not the devil, right? It's not evil, but it's a tool that helps us. But it's also a bit of it gives the illusion of feeling connected to each other. But the experience of life often, the more my head is in the device alone, I might start to feel disconnected from real human beings that I'm physically with. And I start to feel a loneliness. And I've heard that from some of you. We've talked about this, right? Some of us haven't talked about it because we haven't brought it up yet. But as I'm living my life, especially if nobody else maybe is a follower of Christ, I might feel an enormous loneliness as I'm trying to figure out how I do this. And what the Bible is saying is, it doesn't have to be that way. We can kind of cling to each other in the midst of trying to be faithful to God, strengthen each other, and then we go back in stronger on the way out, right? So here's kind of the reality of it. And I would say this, in my life, this value has become incredibly important. I've been in full-time ministry for 20 years. There's been pockets of time where I didn't have this value. And right, if you're not in ministry, you might think, well, aren't you like around spiritual things all the time and Bibles and ministries and church stuff, right? In general, feels like that should be helpful. Guys, it wasn't enough. I'm talking for me. I'm in a fiercely independent person, okay, by nature, and I would look at you and say, I need community. I need a group of people that I can gather with on a regular basis and share life. When I gather together, I meet with a small group of guys, and we meet at 6:15 in the morning. I mean, by nature of when that meeting is, pretty much all of us are losing sleep to be there, right? It's the nature of it. And when I gather there, just the fact that these guys are all going to show up and be there, and I'm going to hear about their struggles and difficulties, and they're going to hear about mine, and I'm going to hear about how they think about faith and what they're facing. And now when I go back to my life and I'm facing a difficulty of maybe a similar kind, or maybe it's very different, I'm going to think about that guy's story and how he clung to Jesus in the middle of his story. Well, what lesson that this guy learned when he was trying to square off with a situation, and that gives me strength and courage to go back and show up with big faith in the middle of my situation. I would look at you and say, guys, I need that. I need that, right? And this is a massive deal. Does it have to always be structured? Probably not. What I need to make sure is there are other followers of Jesus, and there is consistency of some kind, that we're gathering together, and the focus and the point of it is that we're sharing our real lives and how our faith intersects with the reality of what we're living in. It's not just informational, it's transformational. It's not just about gathering data and info. It's about how is that info showing up in my real life and my relationships, in my friendships, in my marriage, in my parenting, in my difficulties with people, whatever it is, right? I got to make sure I'm kind of seeing that reality show up in how we approach sharing life. Now, when we do this, there are some super important things that happen, and they're not always that obvious. They're not always that obvious. Here's one of them that I've really begun to experience more and more. And it's this, that belonging helps me to believe. Right? Belonging helps me to believe. Let me describe what that means. When I belong here, right? When I practice gathering together with other followers of Christ, what happens is I'm experiencing a reality. And here's a reality that happens, right? If you're investigating Jesus, this is what the Bible says, that when you say yes to Jesus, you are transferred, you are adopted into the family of God. You now belong to the family of God, right? You're in, and you belong with all the other followers of Jesus from all over the globe. When we gather together, even with a smaller group of followers of Jesus, we experience and we remember that reality. That even though I might feel rejected in my everyday life, even though I might feel alone or disregarded, or I might feel misunderstood here, I can show up here and know I belong in the midst of all these other followers of Christ, and now I'm in that family. Right? When I belong, it helps me to believe. What also happens is this, right? When I belong and I gather together with other Christ followers, when I'm in the midst of difficulty, right? And we're going to find ourselves here over and over again. When I'm in the midst of difficulty, I'm struggling, I'm overwhelmed. When I have the experience of sharing that reality, and other followers of Christ looking back at me, hearing me, recognizing that I'm in the midst of difficulty, supporting me in that, what that helps me to believe is that there's a God in heaven that hears and sees and knows me in the midst of my difficulty. When I'm in the midst of failure, even, maybe I'm not even living in track with what God has for me, and I confess that and say that, and I'm received by a group of people, it helps me to believe that God receives me and forgives me as I experience that in the midst of community. When I'm in the midst of celebration, maybe something big happens, right? There's a massive breakthrough that happens in my life, and somebody maybe comes to know Jesus that I shared Christ with, or maybe there's an engagement, or a baby is born, or you name it. And that family, that little small slice of the family of God looks and celebrates what is happening in my life. It helps me remember there's a God who is celebrating with me the victories that are playing out in my life. When I belong, it helps me to believe. And that strengthens my faith. Right? We mentioned this earlier, that certainly we're going to have burdens that we walk through and into. Galatians 6:2 talks about that. It says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Guys, the reality is I'm positive, right? If we had time to unpack it and to look at all of our stories, we are carrying all kinds of burdens, griefs and difficulties and health battles and financial stresses and loneliness and troubles relationally and with family, you name it. You name it. There are burdens that are being carried here in the room. And the reality is when you gather together with other people, those people are bringing their burdens into the room or into that space too. And you know this, and I know this. Sometimes I'm more able, I have the strength to help carry the burden of another. Man, sometimes I need somebody else to help carry my burden. Right? And I got to be on both sides of that thing. Sometimes I have to let somebody else carry my burden with me. And honestly, that can be a more humbling thing and humbling place to be. So often we're going to be carrying the burdens of another. And the reality is I can't do that part of Scripture. In fact, all throughout the Bible, there's these one another's that we should love one another and serve one another and pray for one another and forgive one another and carry each other's burdens. I can't do any of those one another-ish verses in a room like this. We can't get close enough to one another to know each other, to be able to fulfill that. In fact, most of the New Testament, how it actually would look is often probably more like a small group, more like what we would call a community, where it's a smaller setting of people where we could share life together and know each other and help each other to cling to Jesus in the middle of whatever we're dealing with. Right? This is how we kind of walk it out in how we put our faith into practice. Is we need that rhythm, and we need it in order to be strengthened and to be protected. Part of one of the other pieces of this that's really important to recognize and understand is this, that living without community is dangerous over time. Okay, I'm going to say this way. Living without community is dangerous over time. When I am isolated over here, and I'm on my own, and I don't have people that know me and know what's going on in my life, I'm not letting them access that. I'm not involved in other people's lives. Now I'm at risk in some ways, and that can turn into a kind of a dangerous situation over time. The way I think of it is like, community is to a follower of Jesus what a frame is to a car. Okay, what a frame is to a car. Community is to a follower of Jesus what a frame is to a car. Right? If your frame is in trouble, your car is in trouble, right? And that's just kind of how it works. Right now, I've got 4 kids, and I've got a lot of drivers right now. So we're like in this stage of life where it's like we're just collecting unbelievably old vehicles, right? It's just like our car is like a parking lot of old, used, barely functional vehicles, right? And they're kind of always breaking. It's kind of insane, right? So right now I'm just like, hey, you got a 20-year-old car? I'll buy it, right? Sold, whatever, we'll take it. And so we had this phase where it was like there was a car breaking like every 3 weeks, and it was kind of driving me insane. And I had a hookup, a connection with a friend who was like, hey, man, I'll get your car in. We're going to work on it. It's going to be awesome. And I was like, I felt so good, right? I was so pumped. I'm like, man, there's going to be one vehicle that works and that runs. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to love this. And so he said, I sent it in to get it worked on. And he texts me a few hours later, and he's like, hey, man, I got bad news, right? And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Seriously. He's like, the thing, we didn't even make it to the thing that you sent it in to get fixed. We didn't even get there because I was looking at the vehicle. He's like, actually, your whole frame is toast. I was like, that's awesome. I was like, how toast? Like, are we talking like we can get a few? He's like, toast, right? He's like, I would not let anybody that you love drive that car. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, man. And he's like, here's the reality. He's like, you might be able to drive that thing for a year. He goes, but if you hit the wrong pothole, like, you're done. Like, the whole car is coming apart, right? And I was like, okay, well, yeah, this thing's done, right? It's toast. And this is how it works, guys, though. Without community, you might be okay for a year or two, right? You might be fine. Your life might be okay. There may be no impact whatsoever. But if you hit the wrong kind of pothole in life, the whole thing comes apart. Right? And I see this happen. I experience when you need a strong frame, when you need a community around you, you really, really need one. And in the moment that you hit that pothole, you can't microwave a community and just say, man, I really wish I had people around me that really knew me and understood me and lived life with me or were in the thick of it and were committed to me all at once because I'm in the middle of this crisis. So here's what a sane follower of Jesus does, is we say, okay, I know this life is going to have potholes. I know for sure there's going to be bumps along the way. And when those bumps, not if, but when those bumps come, what I want to do is I want to be embedded into a group of people that I'm helping to support and walk with, and they're helping and supporting to walk it through with me, right? I need that, and they need that. The thing about the thing about community, and right, the thing about the frame is it often you barely even know it's there. It's not sexy, all right? You don't even see it. Most of the time it feels kind of invisible, but it holds the whole thing together. It keeps us on track, and it keeps us moving in the right direction. I have watched this happen over and over again, where somebody gets complacent and disconnected, and before we know it, we're into like a disaster zone because there's just nobody who's helping us stay kind of on track with following Jesus. The Bible would say this, right? We're not even going to look at the verse, but it says, not good for man to be alone. And the reality is, I need people. You need people. And that is both wonderful and sometimes difficult, because we know that this whole thing takes some commitment and energy for it to be helpful, right? So living without community is dangerous over time. It's also catalytic in our growth, right? So we said it this way, gathering community isn't just a good habit, it's God's design for growth. If I allow myself to really be in on this, here's what's going to happen. If I allow myself to be teachable and be a part of things in a meaningful way, you're going to grow. You're just going to grow. I would look at you and say, me being in that group with those guys, I think about it all the time, where I'm in situations and I am strengthened by somebody else's example that I have heard about. In the story that they told, and it fires me up. And to know that when I gather back with those group of guys, that I want to make sure that I am in the place that I want to be and that I'm proud of, right? Because I'm going to look at those guys here in just a week or so. And that's the reality of how it works. Here's a tough truth. Sometimes there are areas of our life that have not progressed because we have tried to solve them on our own, and we have not allowed ourselves to have a community to help us to move forward. Guys, I'll just look at you and say, I can't grow as fast or as far alone as I can with a group. I wish I could. I've tried really hard to. I like to do it on my own. I've said that before. I can't grow as fast or as far alone as I can with a group. It's just a reality, right? And I think that's true for all of us. It's how God has designed it. That when I gather with these people, these folks can see my blind spots. They see life through a different perspective and through different experiences than what I have, because they're living in a different thing than I'm living in. So when we gather together, I'm able to hear outside of just my limited perspective, right? Kind of my echo chamber that I create for myself. And that helps me enormously to grow, right? It's huge. The Bible is going to say it this way, 1 Thessalonians 5:11, therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing. Right? The idea is, how do we help each other to grow, encourage, build, and fire each other up in our pursuit of our faith? And he says, you guys are, many of you are already doing this. And that's true. Here at Grace, more than half of you are connected in some way in community or in courses already, which is incredibly healthy. And I would look at you and say the health of a congregation in many ways is defined by, right, how many people are connected with each other, not just in attendance, but in each other's lives, right? And so many of us are doing that. We're active in it now, and I would just encourage you to stay in it, right? Stay in it, because it's almost easy to take it for granted. It's easy to get distracted and get sick or go on a vacation and start to kind of fade away from the priority of being in a community and to make sure that we're connected to it. So you say, Ryan, what do we do with all this, right? Where do we go with it? Let me try to break that down as best we can. Here's the first part. I got to start somewhere. Just take the first step, right? Take the first step. Start somewhere. I realize that many of you are in the room here and you're like, maybe you're like me and you're like, man, I've never done any of this before. Like, me going to church is a big deal. Look, I would tell you that the fact that you're here is awesome. The fact that you're here is awesome. Keep doing that. That's an awesome first step. When you're up for it, when you're ready to take a step and to move, I think the easiest place to start was that lunch that I was talking about, going to Discovery. Man, just start there. It's super simple. It's literally just going to lunch, right? You just have to show up and be in on that for one Sunday afternoon for a few hours. I would say sign up for that when you're ready if you've got no idea where to start, okay? Start there. A bunch of us have been a part of a community. Maybe you have done that in the past and you're disconnected now. What I would tell you is this. Try a community or a course. Hear me say this, okay? Hear me say this. You are welcome to go 1 or 2 or 3 times to a community or a course and then decide it's not a good fit. Okay, you're not bound there forever. Our leaders know that that's what happens, right? They're not going to call you and give you a big dose of Christian guilt, right? We don't do that here, like lead with guilt. You are welcome to go try it out, see if it's a good fit. If it's not, no harm, no foul, man. Try something else and try to land there. It's awesome, right? So try a community, try a course, see if it's a good fit. And guys, there's all kinds. There's courses here on the weekend. There's communities that meet almost every day of the week. We've got a strong presence in Celebrate Recovery. There's men's groups, there's women's, there's all kinds of stuff. You just have to look through it. And if you need help kind of sifting, we've got folks that will help walk you through it. But take the step to connect somewhere, right? And determine that this is important for you. Okay, here's the last one. Make it a priority. Make it a priority. Now, listen, this is not a guilt thing. This is a belief thing. This is a statement that says, you know what, I actually believe that this is important, that this is something God wants me to be a part of and do. I believe that I need it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to make this a big part of my life. Kind of a no-fail zone. And I would look at you and say, like right now, in my life, I need my community, my group. If I am in town, I'm there, right? Even if I miss some sleep, I'm going to be there the best I can, right? I need that. And the reality is we're all kind of that way, and we have to wrestle this through, because here's the thing. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. We were going to sign up for something. We're going to show up to something a couple times, and then once we get into a rhythm, we're going to hit a moment, a morning, an evening where we don't feel like going, where I'm tired, I don't feel like going today. I'm tired today. And we're going to look at that and say, you know what, I'm not going to do it today. I'm too tired, right? Listen, when you are too tired, as a general rule, that's the exact time that you need to be there. I cannot tell you the number of mornings that I did not want to wake up early, and I thought to myself, I don't want to do this tomorrow morning. I don't want to do it this morning. And what I went into it sounding like this: I'm too tired to do this, I don't want to do it. And I walked out sounding like this: I'm sure glad I went. Guys, the stuff that really moves the needle in our lives, most of it sounds like this: I don't really want to be doing this, I'm sure glad I did that. I don't really feel like it today, I'm a little bit too tired. Wow, that thing really just gave me energy and gave me life. Pastor Jordan said something a few weeks ago: you need to write it down. You need to write it down. Put it in your phone, do whatever you want. I want to do things that take energy but give life. Did you hear that? Things that take energy but give life. Right? I'm tired. You know what I should do? I should scroll for 1 hour and 20 minutes for absolute brainlessness. How do you feel after that? It's fine if it's entertainment. That's great. But you're not going to get any life from that. You know, I'm exhausted. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to watch some Netflix. That's fine. It's entertainment. Just don't expect to get any life from it. There are things that take energy but give life. And when I recognize one of those, I've got to commit to making that a priority, because I know I'm going to feel that way next time that there's a moment when life feels hard. Man, I don't really want to do that today. But I know if I did it, I would come out the other side energized, reinvigorated, galvanized for the right stuff. And we got to have a conversation around this. This isn't about guilt. It's not about, man, God's mad at you. It's none of that. This is an honest evaluation of what actually gives life. And God has gifted us with each other and with this structure in order to fire life. Because here's what we want to do. We want to walk back into our days here. Not as a zombie, not as a dead man or woman walking, trying to get through the days. I want to walk in here focused and alive and attentive, because God put me on the planet for a reason. Right? I don't want to just lose a decade because I got bored and zoned out. I want to walk in here on purpose with intentionality, and I want to be used by a living God to reach people that are longing to be reached with the hope of Jesus. They just might not know it yet. If you want that, you want to be in community. And if you're anything like me, I'm going to look at you and say, I need it. I just can't do it alone. I just can't do it alone, okay? So you know what to do, right? Try out a group if you need to try out one. If you're brand new, look back at me and say, fine, Ryan, I'll go to your stupid lunch, right? It's great. So sign up for it. Let us know. Start somewhere, though, right? Start somewhere that we can find ourselves in a rhythm where I'm not just burning time and zombieing my way through life, where I'm going through a rhythm of pouring myself out in my days and getting some energy back, getting refilled as I share life with other followers of Jesus that are trying to do the same thing. There's a table out there if you want to ask questions or sign up or make. Guys, it's easy. Just let us know. What do you want to do? We'll help you to take the steps. We have to move towards it if we want to see God work with us and move with us in the middle of it. If the band comes up, would you bow your heads, close your eyes with me? We'll pray and worship together. Father, first and most, we want to say thank you that you would be willing to include us in your family. That you would look at me and look at us who were once your enemies, and you would say, no longer are you that, but now you are my son, my daughter. God, thank you. Thank you for including us in your family, adopting us into your name. And God, I pray that you would lead us in such a way that we share life and walk with one another. And this is the path, Lord, that leads to a wisdom team, into deep friendship, into mentorship and discipleship, and Lord, all the things that create richness in our relationships around Christ, around you, Lord. So would you give us courage, even if there's been hurt in the past, even if we're resistant today, Lord, to trying it again. God, give us the courage to bring it up, to have a conversation, and to find our way into the rhythms that take energy but give life. Meet us here, Lord, even now.